DJ Actor Kel, Ned Tilly, and Valerie Hurt, and Talmadge Dragon. Julie was the voice on the answering machine. Very excited. Michael Craynor is here. And Kunima Parkinson-Jones, our cast, our cinematographer, Zoltan Humphrey, and our producer, Brian Mueller.
So first I want to thank all of you for being here, and one more time, congratulations on the win. I'm going to give you guys a second to collect your thoughts and think up some really good questions for these guys. I'm going to start out with one of my own, and this can be for Daniel and Brian, if it makes sense. There's a line towards the end, and it's Matt asked Michael about his next project, and he says, well, it's different, it's scripted. And I want you to talk a little bit about the very blurry lines between documentary and fiction, and about the genesis of the project and how you decided to blur those lines. And if you would even maybe just touch on a little bit of the reaction you've been getting as you've been showing it around town, because Brian's told me a couple of good stories.
Those were 5 questions.
I'm a pig.
The story originated 10 years ago in Germany, when my roommate in Germany is a documentary filmmaker, actually had this idea to make a documentary about a suicidal person. And he dropped the idea immediately. But the story was just too good to drop. Number 1. Number 2, blurring the edges. We shot, we came right out of film school, and none of us had money, but we didn't want to wait for 5 years before we could work together again. Because our thesis team, Zoltan and I, had worked together on 4 projects during AFI. We all went to AFI together with Brian all the same year. And we just noticed that people normally take 5 years to kind of raise money and write projects before they shoot a single frame. And Zoltan said, let's just go and shoot something. And so we had to come up with something that wouldn't cost any money. So we were thinking, what can we shoot on video, where the video aesthetic actually wouldn't take away from the story, but would kind of add credibility to the story. So that idea came back. Blurring the edges between documentary and reactions.
There's really only 3.
Reactions we got. I mean, the most distinct reactions to me were very early on when I took a rough cut of the film to a film festival in Kosovo. Is that the story you're referring to?
It's a different one, but keep going. Tell us first.
This one's much better.
Okay, tell us first.
And I didn't say in advance that it was not a real documentary, and it was longer, and it was a different cut, and it had a different ending. And after the movie, there was complete silence. There was not even like a courtesy applause or anything. It was just complete silence. And then I walked down the aisle, and I found a girl lying in the aisle and twitching. And the guy next to her had his face in his hands like that, and the tears were running down his forearms. And he was rocking back and forth. And I was looking around, there were people in the audience, like little islands where like friends were gathering around the person that had a nervous breakdown. And it was, if you dropped a bomb on this audience. So I thought I'd, do first aid and run around and tell everyone it's not real, it's actors. And they went straight from shock into fury. You couldn't win this thing. And then an American girl jumped in front of me and grabbed me and shook me and screamed at me, "You're a murderer, you should have saved him, well, how could you?" And I was so surprised I couldn't even tell her that it was fake, she was off. And the organizer of the film festival came to me and said, "Don't go outside, whatever you do, there's a mob gathering to deal with you." And that's in Kosovo. It's not the same mob that would gather out, in front of the fence. So then when I came back to LA, we kind of recut the film. We have this new ending. The old ending was much straighter. There was no Hollywood twist. It was just Gilbert and Matt go into the garage. We hear one shot, Matt is dead. The garage opens and Gilbert comes out with this expression on his face. Subtle actor that he is.
That's why we reshot. Basically.
And we saw on his face, and we really did, it was a great moment, that he just witnessed something that he was responsible for, and that would kind of break him, that he wouldn't be able to live with that. And then we also had baby pictures of Matt over the credits.
The title saying that it had been given to his mom, and his mom had never watched any of the footage.
It was evil. It was the evil version. And she dedicated the whole film to Matt and all that. So it's got to be on the DVD. And that's. Which story were you talking about?
Oh, dude, that's great.
No, that did it. That did it. This was the sort of PG-13 version where somebody here at the first screening.
Last night, somebody did not know.
Oh.
Well, actually, Trenor saw the reaction.
I'd like to talk about it.
There was a girl in the front row, and when Matt showed up, she just like, and she's wiping tears away, and she's like, he's alive, he's alive! And then she got a bit defensive, and we're like, well, it's obviously, narrative. She's like, I didn't know. That's my story, thanks.
That's that same kind of dialogue in Kosovo, actually, where I told the girl, Matt is an actor, he's alive, and she was crying, and she said, doesn't Gilbert know?
This is a pretty fun Q&A for
a suicide movie.
Suicide movie. Do you guys have questions?
For the actors, maybe. If there are any questions for the actors, so that I'm not standing here talking the whole time.
Well, okay, I don't have a question.
Yeah.
If you want to, okay, this is the second time I've seen the movie. I've seen an earlier cut, and it fooled me the first time. And my question, when this, post-theatrical gets out into the mainstream, are you you feel you're gonna go with an approach where you're gonna leave it to the audience's belief, or you're gonna market it in such a way where you're gonna make it seem like it's real?
No, we've played with this quite a bit, because this is a whole, do you go with Blair Witch, or do you go with, Cloverfield, which obviously New York's still around, and that wasn't real. And so this was an enormous debate between us going back and forth, and we really didn't, and we took kind of what you see here to South by, and we had 3 screenings, and we kind of tested it out. It was in the narrative section of the catalog, but we didn't go out of our way to tell people about that. And after the first 2 screenings, we thought on the third one, we'll go up there, and Daniel will get up there in his very thick German accent and tell them, this is fake. Our actors are here, this is not real. And at least what I've seen in reactions is, I think when you know that this isn't real, you're okay with embracing the humor a little bit more. And so I think people laugh a little bit more when they hear a joke. When you think that this is real, even if something's funny, you're so not wanting this to happen that the audiences seem to appreciate it more. So everybody except for our young lady in the front last night knew that it was fake, and I thought it played really well. So it's still a debate, but I mean, it's been on the internet. Right now it's got 100% on Rotten Tomatoes, and every one of the reviews talks about how this is a choice as a narrative device. And I don't think this was ever constructed to try to be a Blair Witch. This was constructed as a genuine, narrative film, where this was a specific choice. So this is the most effective way to shoot this within this format. But we go back, and once you have that in your hands, you kind of get into that debate. Oh, we could really pull a fast one here. So, but I think that it plays more. I think he's a brilliant narrative filmmaker, and I think that it doesn't constrict it. I think that it almost does a disservice if there's a gimmick to it. I think as a director and as actors, they put something so genuine this is why you go to movie theaters, to have your emotions go up and down and manipulated, and you're trying to outthink the film, and I think they did a great job of creating something like that.
It's a narrative that works about the actors. You did a fantastic performance.
Yeah, these actors. I'll stop talking. Other questions?
For the actors.
Actors?
Actor
a
questions.
question for an actor? All the way up in the top and the back. Hi.
I have a question that's kind of for everybody. I'm curious as to how much of the scenes were scripted and how much was improv and how much. It's really a question for Daniel, I guess.
No, it's not. It's a question for me, and I'm going to answer. Because I was there too, There was a skeleton structure for every single scene where we knew what we wanted to happen in the scene, but there was no script at all. There was never any written words for any of the dialogue. We all used our own names so that at any given time we could just say whatever we wanted to say. And so what we would do is we would do a scene, we would have like a beginning, middle, and end, and then we would take the things that worked from that, put them in the next take, take things that worked from that, put them in the next take. So ultimately we would do like 50 takes where we would try to combine all the best moments of all the previous 49 takes, but also in the shortest amount of time. So we did a lot of takes of every single thing, and there was never any script, and it was kind of awesome to not have a script because there was a lot of things that we did that led to other plot points that we then would go and film that didn't even know were going to be plot points until someone said something. You know, like I worked at the restaurant all my life. Well, let's go find a restaurant, you know, so. I answered one, there you go.
And yet I'm getting writer's credit. That's because I put the credits together. The last one?
So that being said, as an actor, how much of this was you guys really just being sort of close to who you are versus creating characters for the roles?
Okay, I created a character for the role just to make it interesting, because when you film something for 3 years, you have to make it interesting
That
for
is
yourself.
such bullshit. Let me tell the story.
This is what really happened, right? Our auditions worked the way that we put Gilbert into the room and we had the actors come in and tell the story of why they wanted to kill themselves, to improvise. There were no sides, no script, no nothing. Matt had not gotten that information, that there would not be any actual scripted sides, no dialogue, right? So when he came in and Gilbert said, "So why do you want to kill yourself?" Matt was surprised. The question. And he slowed down about to like 70% or something, you told me, right?
Yeah.
Just because he needed time to think. And that kind of stuck. That's where the character comes from. He is slower than he is in real life. He has this borderline autistic thing going. And that comes from the audition because he needed time to think about the question. It has nothing to do with keeping anything interesting over 3 years.
There you go, I'm joking. Yeah, so I feel as though I had a character. Did you have the others were kind of,
Yeah, I
kind
mean,
of.
I feel like I feel like I was mostly myself until, except for the parts about you killing yourself and me being involved in so many romance-related murder-suicides. Mostly myself, but yeah, we were ourselves most of the time, and then it would get dramatic. I mean, I think what made it fun too is these are all really, really hilarious guys. So I think Dano had a hard time getting anything serious out of us.
That's why it took 3 years.
And that's why it took 3 years. But that's, I think, the time when any character thing came up is when we had to be serious.
Can you guys as actors talk, you can hear me, I know you can. Can you talk a little bit about your reactions to when you very first heard about the project and thinking like, can I handle this? Can I do this? Is this something that I want to get involved with? Because it is a sort of heavy and kind of complex moral. You okay up there? Yeah? Let's not draw attention. Can you talk a little bit about your first reactions?
Well, Daniel came to me right away and said that he wanted me to play the filmmaker in this thing, and so I was fortunate that I didn't actually have to audition for it or anything, and I didn't really think about it that much. I mean, it's like if someone comes to you and says, "Hey, you're going to be in Rambo at 5 or whatever, and they're going to like blow your head off," I'd be like, "Awesome!" I would be like, "I don't know if I can handle that." Oh gosh, it's pretty intense. I mean, like it's acting, so you know, it was. I mean, I think it was really easy for us to kind of not think about the final stuff because we did it in chronological order. So when we kind of started, we're all having fun and we're having fun on screen. We were pretty much really having fun at that point. It was much harder, I think, at the end of the process to be like, oh shit, like I've got to really portray what the process of seeing your friend kill himself in front of you is really going to be like. And I think if I had thought of that in advance, I would have been so insecure about performing that moment that I might have been hesitant. But that was my take on it. Yeah.
Yeah, well, also not having a script, you can't go home and read the script and think, wow, this is going to be tough, because we didn't really actually know what was going to happen. We knew there was a suicidal guy and something was going to happen, and the movie kind of was created while we were acting. So, and also improvising as well. It's a lot easier to leave the material at home because a lot of the time you can't really remember what you did. And it was like, okay, I like the last take, incorporate this. I can't really remember what you want me to incorporate. So yeah, so if you have a script, you kind of take the material home with you, I think. But improvising, for me anyway, it was a lot easier to just leave it at home, or leave it on the set. But we didn't have a set.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it was just so fun most of the time. I mean, mostly we were just hanging out. We spent so much time together. It was like hanging out with what eventually came to be family-like situation. And then, yeah, it was when we did finally get to the serious parts. There was a little bit of actor panic because I was like, oh, Jesus, can I even do this? Like we've been having so much fun. It's hard to believe, is this really happening? And then to get in that mode, and then I even once I was starting to see like rough cuts and stuff. And Matt actually left the country for a long time. So literally the last time I saw him was when he went into that garage. And I never saw him come out. And it was like a year later, and I was like, and I saw him on the street, and I was like, oh my God, Matt! And I was totally like, he's alive! And so that was like a dramatic moment. But everything else was so fun, really, and it's so fun and creative to improv and feel like you have a little say in the story and that you're like a creative entity with the director. And we didn't really know where the story was going most of the time. I mean, we shot so many variations. It was like a choose your own adventure movie.
More questions right here in the middle.
Yeah, in the majority of the interview scenes, I don't know if this was a conscious decision, but everybody's lying on the ground or sitting on the ground or lying around, with the exception of Matt most of the time, where he's upright, or he's got his last interview in a suit and everything. I was wondering if that was a conscious decision to make everybody kind of lounging around all the time.
Let's see you stand for 50 takes. Around 35, we're here. 40.
Yeah, I've never thought about that. It's kind of been a conscious decision, but that's probably true. I would have to check the first takes if we're starting the upright position. No idea. Yeah. But thinking about it now, it makes sense, and it's brilliant filmmaking. Just because it shows you how comfortable the characters are with each other. It would have been weird if we had shot the first auditions lying down. That would have been, yeah. But then once they're in the living room and they're kind of all together, I think it works.
Yeah.
Don't tell me we have to reshoot.
No.
People will faint.
One more really good one.
For Michael.
No.
Any question? Do you have a question for Michael?
No.
Not from Mike.
Then
ask your question.
I did want to say, firstly, the editing was fantastic.
Yes.
Yes.
We have two fantastic editors who work in it, Shilpa Sahi and David Kashabaro. And Shilpa worked on it for literally 2 years. Because we shot 150 hours of material. And she has such an eye for character. She will never go for the effect or the, what looks funky or slick or whatever, or put techno music underneath that. She really has an eye for human emotions. And we argue a lot. Like half of our editing time is us two screaming at each other, but it really kind of brings out something else, I think.
Great. Well done.
Sneak this last one, please, please,
We have
please.
time.
Please.
Just like 30 seconds of a question.
One last one.
Okay. First I ate it up. I thought it was real what I call crap, but then I say so. Moving on. I just got one question for the plot, for the ending. Did the guy kill the guy and then kill himself, or did both of them kill him?
Yeah. We had basically this cut, and we did test screenings, and half the audience was confused. Did Matt kill himself, and then Gilbert walked over, picked up the gun, and killed himself? How many people thought that watching it today?
No, I thought that the first time because I didn't see the gun the first time I saw it.
Right.
I see the gun with Matt.
Right. So then we had that problem. Half the audience was confused, and what was different about that cut was just that the scene where he sits by the river by himself, kind of thinking, contemplating. We had this beautiful piano music on there, and it was this beautiful, beautiful afternoon orange sunlight. And I think it came across as if he had made his peace with death, and I think that made it harder for people to understand this ending. So we went in and you might have noticed that everything suddenly turns green. That was kind of our anti-orange thing, because in color correction turned everything green. We took the piano music out and we did this sound, which is supposed to stand for his insanity kind of building up. And then we put it in color correction, made a circle around the gun and made the gun brighter, so that we were hoping that you would see the gun lying next to Matt. And since we did that, most of the audience doesn't have a problem with it. But,
Thank you, everyone.
I want to have you guys thank them.